This is Cutting Down the Nets. Man, it's good to be back. As you can see, I lost my home office temporarily. Look, not because I'm not playing well. We're going through a home remodel, but I assure you that 51% against the spread does not pay for a home remodel. But hey, we're going to talk through a few college basketball games. I actually like to schedule for tomorrow, so that's a kiss of death. We'll see what happens. Last year, 55.5% over about 1,000 games, played 400 some this year, 51.2%. Been a sustained stretch of bad ball. Look, post on Twitter, a lot of close losses. Look, I'm not going to complain. It's just not getting the job done. But I do feel I'm kind of through the toughest part of the year where most metrics have shaken preseason, and most metrics are looking at the exact same data I am to now I'm looking at a little more recent, and they're likely clinging to a little more season long. So what I do is an efficiency model. I use recent efficiencies. I weight them heavily on recent play, but basically somewhere between 5 to 15 games with different weights. And it's adjusted for opponents, adjusted for pace. I don't play the model straight up. I try to narrow that down. The model will produce, I don't know, probably 10 to 20% of a given day's schedule as potential plays. So on a Saturday with 120 games, could be like 25 plays. I don't play those 25 plays. That's where I start. That's what I look at. And I narrow it down. I narrow it down a few ways. I look at shot quality. I want to make sure that spikes or drops in efficiency isn't related to luck. So if a team has a spike in efficiency, flagging them as a play, I want to make sure that shot quality is following that, and it's not just shots going in that shouldn't have went in. I also look at situational spot. So as a team coming off a big home overtime win over a rival, is it a look ahead spot? Is it a grinding part of the schedule where they've been on the road and might be a little travel weary? Is it a revenge spot? Is it they're playing a team whose back's against the wall? Now that stuff gets a little narrative-y, but it's real. Basketball is not played on spreadsheets, and that matters. So I try to factor that in as well, and then ultimately I look at matchup. Like I'm not as good with schematic matchups, like who's good at defending pick and roll, who's good at catch and shoot threes. I have access to some of that data. I use it, but I'm mainly looking at the four factors, which would be effective field goal, turnover rate, rebound rate, and free throw rate. So let's dig into this Wednesday schedule. So on here, what you'll see is a road team on top, home team on the bottom. Paddy is my model. I also have a median version of that model that uses median instead of average. I've got a big long thread somewhere in my Twitter if you want to check that out. This is shot quality's year-to-date efficiency. Look, shot quality costs like $3,000 a year. I don't pay for it. So I use their free standings to project a spread. And then I kind of have like a rolling average that tells me how teams are shading in recent play. Again, last 6 to like 18 games for shot quality. Torvik's number, KenPom number, at this point in the season, I don't see like any value in those numbers, and they may fall off as the year goes on. This will be the actual point spread. I'll have news and notes on the games, and then the value between the point spread and Paddy. So in this first example, Belmont, Paddy has somewhere between 21 and 24 points, being favored over Evansville. Point spread is 12, so we're seeing about 9.3 points of value. Do I think Belmont will win by 23 points? Not really. I use this directionally, meaning a lot of data points are telling me that the Belmont side has value compared to the Evansville side. So I'll give you a few examples of these games. So Belmont's clicking at the right time. We'll dig into their profile just a little bit here. There is some shot quality disagreement, but the recent shot quality is much stronger than the year-to-date, and you'll kind of see how their efficiency has grown too. But really, this is a play against Evansville. They've played 12 top 200 Bart Torvik teams. They're 0-12, average margin of defeat, points per game. So let's look at some of this stuff, and I'll show you how I do it. So this is, I'll just go to straight up Bart Torvik. This is live right now. He has Houston #1, Tennessee 2, so on. So what you can do is you can filter by venue, like home, away, top 100 teams, top 200, however they fared versus them, or even quad games, whatever it might be, conference only, however you want to do it. So when you look at the all of college basketball against the top 200, let's go ahead and do a little search here for our friends in Evansville. Not only are they 0-12, 333rd in offensive efficiency, 339th in defensive efficiency. So 0-12 is not good, but it's how they get to 0-12 that's really bad. Like, for instance, I'll just show you Minnesota here. They're 2-10. That's not good. But that's like, I wouldn't say respectable, but that's like, okay, a 98 offensive efficiency and 99 versus the top 200, where Evansville is far different. So if we look at Evansville, for me, it's how they're losing these games. They are not competitive. So if I pull up Evansville's team page, look, they're 4-17, so no one's going to argue like, oh, Evansville's pretty good. I think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, most people are going to say Evansville's pretty bad. But here's their opponent ranks in Torvik rank on kind of the left-hand side. So St. Louis, the top 200 team, 18. UCF, 20. And you just kind of keep going down. Southern Illinois, 27. Even UNI, 17. Ball State, about 20. Indiana State, 30 burger. Missouri State, 17. Missouri State, 23. Bradley, about a 50 burger. Most recently, Drake, another 30 burger. So this team is, I wouldn't even call them competitive against bottom feeders, but against the top 200, not only are they losing, but they are getting blown out. You can kind of see all the red there. That's not good. This is an offense that doesn't shoot well. They do not rebound their own shot. And all these poor efficiency numbers are even with decent three-point shooting. So I'm not scared like, oh, they had a good three-point shooting night, so I'm going to lose. I don't know. That's why I saw value in that play. Looking at Belmont, yeah, they're 15-6, but I like looking at the shape of how that has happened. They've been a solid three-point shooting team, as you can see throughout the year. They're not running especially hot from three-point defense. Just had a huge road win at Bradley. We'll get to Bradley in a little bit, how tough they were at home. So, look, they're playing their best ball. They're playing a team that really struggles against, I wouldn't even call it top tier competition. I just call it competition. And that was, again, versus top 200. Belmont comes in at 114. So, for me, I saw value in Belmont, and I played Belmont at this time. Next two games, I'll just touch on quickly. They're orange for me. Orange for me is like, I'm not likely to play this unless there's some drastic line movement or, I don't know, someone respected that I follow is like, hey, man, I would definitely play this side. So Paddy likes the Alabama side. You can see the median's a little lower in value, but the line's 11.5. But look at these shot quality numbers. Shot quality has that game much closer. Here's why shot quality has that game much closer. We'll go over to the team standings. No surprise that you see Alabama at 17-2. They're an elite rim and three team. They're good in like all facets. They're an elite transition team. They're an elite three-point shooting team. Like they're really good. However, their record at 17-2, shot quality has them graded out at 13-6. Now Mississippi State sits this year at 12-7, so you think you'd have to scroll down quite a bit for them. Here they are at 12th in shot quality, and their record a little better. So this is where it's hard for me to explain to people. So are you betting Mississippi State? Absolutely not. I'm not going against these recent efficiencies, but that is not an example of where I'm just staying away from that game. They have played once this year. Bama won by 9 at Stark Vegas. Michigan State has dropped 7 out of 8, but again, shot quality is not docking them for those losses, basically saying unlucky. Butler, been a little short-handed. They traveled to the Dunk. whatever it's called now. It'll always be the Dunk. I don't care what Providence renamed their stadium. Regression has hit both the Butler offense and defense at the exact same time over the last month. They're also have been shorthanded. Despite all that, this is still a lot of points, 9.5, even at the Dunk. So let's just check in on Butler, and you can kind of see what I saw and why I'm not playing Butler. They have really, really fallen off. So they came in 1/10 basically with preseason, but they shot all the way. They peaked around 50th, and they were doing that with this offensive profile. And you can see how this offensive profile is really lifted by good shooting, primarily three-point shooting. And this whole offense has started to go from green and white to red and white. And you can see that with their recent efficiency. So that's why Paddy's saying that they are big dogs at Providence. Another thing that you can do on shot quality, you can choose venue. Let's look at home. I'm just curious where Providence shows up for home teams because I don't know the answer to that question. I know for a couple other teams that I've targeted today. So they're 11-0 at home. Really not that impressive, but obviously 11-0. But metrics-wise, is like, kind of meh. So long story short, long-winded way of me saying I am not likely to be playing the Providence side. So what would make me play that? Maybe if it dipped to like 8. Might be interested there. Shot quality is in that 7-ish range. Paddy was in the like 15, 16. But again, for all the reasons I've mentioned so far, I don't like to lay a lot of points against decent opponents. Next up, Army and American. So American's favored by 4 here. Recent efficiency has Army by about 2. And shot quality has it close to a pick'em as well. So Army is someone that has been bitten by regression, and American's about to be. It's basically where I'm at on this game. So Army is 201st in Torvik, but 258th in shot quality. Usually that gap closes. American, 220th in Torvik, 301 in shot quality. So I expect that gap to close as well. So Army kind of dealt with this against Navy. They were both regression candidates, but here getting more than a possession against a team that's due a lot of regression, even if it takes backing Army, I'm fine there. This game's gray. This game's gray because there's not a line I would play. Jake Stevens, who is Chattanooga's best player, he's actually 25th in Torvik's Player of the Year ranking. I mean, just a monster. 31% usage. 23 points per game, 11, 4, 2, shoots the 3, broke his hand 2 games ago. In their first game without him, they lost to East Tennessee State by 16. So this is false value here. I'm not saying that Jake Stevens is worth 8 points or 9 points. I'm just not interested in backing a Chattanooga team that has lost their highest usage player. So, yeah. Tulane versus Wichita State. So what I like here is Tulane forces opponents to shoot shots far away from the basket. Wichita State, when shooting far away from the basket, is very bad. Where I'm finding that, by the way, everything I'm showing you today is like 100% free. I mean, you can do this sort of stuff. So I'm on shot quality. A lot of their stuff is behind a paywall, but their miscellaneous stats are not, at least for offense. I mean, this is just like the shot type stats. The ultimate mooch model here as I dig into Wichita State. So we'll pull up Wichita State's profile. This first screen you see here is frequency. So how often do they do X? How often do they, run P&R? How often do they shoot, catch, and shoot three-pointers? What I'm looking at is efficiency. How good are they at those things? And again, Tulane's going to force you to shoot, forcing shots away from the basket. And here we have Wichita State 355th In efficiency with catch and shoot 3-pointers, 318th off the dribble 3-pointers, and 251st in the mid-range. Does it mean Tulane's going to win this game? Absolutely not. But if we're trying to find teams that will perform above or below their median expectation, I like this matchup on the Tulane side. So at time of video, Wichita State's favored by 1. I took a pick'em on Tulane just based on math. Like the odds for the pick'em were better. So the money line was better than laying or getting 1 point at -110. So just a FYI there. Loyola Chicago versus Duquesne. This one's, I'm on the fence. Like, it's close. Don't have too much value here. We have 4 points of value. I do think it's a little buy low for Duquesne. People might be writing them off because they've had 2 straight bad games. So something to think about. But Loyola Chicago, I think, has been getting by for a long time here, just off a little name recognition. They are not a good basketball team. They have not played well this year. We kind of blasted Evansville for their top 200 record. Let's see where Loyola fell in that. Just going to find Loyola Chicago. There's Marymount, Maryland, and Loyola Chicago. 2-10 in the 250s for efficiency. Let's dig into their profile a little bit, and you'll just see that this is not a good basketball team and appear to be getting worse. So essentially they had this stretch in early December where they shot the ball pretty well from deep. Since then, they haven't, and we now have like 8-9 games of like, I think this is who they are. They are getting torched a little bit from deep, but even their most recent game, they held St. Bonaventure to a pretty poor shooting performance. They did win that game. But yeah, I'm on the fence with that. It's just something to consider, and I'll kind of see where that line ends up. Next up, Texas A&M goes to Auburn. Shot quality has the 16-3 Auburn Tigers with a shot quality record of 11-8. That typically shows some regression coming. Texas A&M is showing as a Paddy play here, keeping it within a possession despite shooting less than 25% from 3 in 5 of their last 8. So what that means is this efficiency model is looking at recent play. Texas A&M hasn't shot well from 3 and is still showing as a good efficiency play. On top of that, we're getting them as a pretty good shot quality play as well. And if I wanted something to push me over the edge, I would go to Torvik and I would switch this to how has everyone done in road games this year? Who are the best teams in college basketball in efficiency in road games? Houston, number 1. There's Texas A&M at 3-2, but number 7 with really strong efficiency numbers there. So that's enough to push me over the edge, and I played Texas A&M +6. Some yellow games here that I'm just kind of watching because I think that the lines could move. We have Wisconsin and Maryland. Let me quickly show you how I think it's easy to identify where lines are going to move. We'll see if Circa is up yet or not. So give me just a second. Live production meeting here on this video. So we're going to look at tomorrow's slate, and I'll just pick a game as an example to kind of show you, and we'll see where the Wisconsin game is. All right, we'll open this puppy up. Do we have Circa lines yet? We do not. Okay, so you can see 5.5s are painted pretty much across the board. When Circa posts their lines, usually about this time of night, if they are at +7 or +6.5 or even +6, do not bet a 5.5 at one of the other books. Typically, books chase Circa, so the 5.5 is likely to grow towards the Circa number. If Circa came in at 5 or 4.5, then I would be looking to bet the 5.5, as I would expect the book. Like, let's just say you're betting at Bet Online or Bovada, one of the offshores. If they're 5.5 and Circa's 5, it's likely a matter of time before the 5.5 becomes a 5. Reason being, Circa is really good at setting lines. Circa has good professional betting customers because they have high limits. And it's not to say Circa can't take a bet and then move their line significantly too. That happens, but just a guiding principle for me. So I'm kind of waiting to see where Circa is on that game. If Circa is less than the 5.5, I'll bet the 5.5. Circa's a little higher, I'll sit and wait. But overall, this is a pretty even matchup by shot quality and recent efficiency standards. So 2 possessions feels pretty good. Albany, New Hampshire. Paddy likes the New Hampshire side. I'm just not getting sucked into New Hampshire. I've been there before. Shot quality does have Albany ranked higher year to date as well over New Hampshire, but I've played New Hampshire in the past, and they certainly are capable of getting hot, but not a good basketball team. Illinois State and Bradley. We talked about the road splits so far. Let's look at some home teams on Bart Torvik. So we'll switch this away to a home. And you're going to see some of the best teams in college basketball. Likely not a lot of surprises here. Rutgers is a good home team. Duke, Connecticut, Baylor. I mean, those are good basketball teams. Washington State, a little surprising. And there is our Bradley Braves at 18. So when you look at Bradley, they're coming off a home loss, the rare home loss, the first one of the year, to Belmont. More props to Belmont for pulling that off. But their home road splits are crazy. So I made some notes in the actual game here. Haslam has them as the number 1 home court team, but basically their home margin of victory before the Belmont game was 26.3 points. There's not a whole lot of value here, but I do like buying them at home after the home loss. Potentially, again, that's a lot of points. Also, Illinois State, not a good road team, but most teams are. Loyola, Maryland at Lafayette. It's getting thin down here. We're into the 3s for value, so you'll see the oranges start to appear, the yellows, where I haven't made bets yet. This Indiana-Minnesota line grew a little bit, adding value, but Dawson Garcia is questionable. This is a big regression spot here. Maine and UMass Lowell. Shot quality has Maine favored, and recent efficiencies have Lowell by about a possession or so, and current line's 5.5. So I'd buy at 2 possessions, but not at the current number. That's just not quite enough. Yeah, and then Xavier is close, mainly because his Paddy median number is pretty strong there. So I'm considering that as people kind of jump on UConn, jump off UConn, all that sort of stuff. So again, it's good to be back. I've played 5 so far: Belmont, Army, Tulane, Texas A&M, and Western Carolina. I barely hit on Western Carolina. They play the Citadel, and shot quality and Paddy both like the Western Carolina side. Watching closely Wisconsin and Lafayette, and then monitoring Maine, Xavier, and to some extent a few other games. But that's kind of a look into what my process is. I do believe in process over results, but the results have been certainly frustrating this year. Hopefully this video gets us back on track, get some mojo going, and we can finish the season strong. You can find me. All bets are logged on BetStamp, and post daily on Twitter with the spreadsheet you just saw. Spreadsheet's also in the description of this video, along with all the other descriptions for every metric that I referenced during this. So, this is Cutting Down the Nets. Let's catch some bets.